Hey guys, Thomas the Solution here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review Captain Underpants. So, this is a DreamWorks film, and before I do officially begin this review, I will say that yes, back when uh, I was in school, a long, long time ago, I did used to pick up and read the Captain Underpants books. They're pretty simple and straightforward. And when I heard that there was a movie, I was like, okay, that could be interesting. It's a little late, but it's it's something that could uh, work, I suppose. So I decided to check it out, and yeah, here's my review. So of course we have George and Harold who open up our narration, telling us the situation, pretty open to fourth wall breaking and such immediately. And then the principal rips one of their comic books, and after that, they go on a pranking montage. And they prank like this because of the principal and his rules and how he makes everything so boring. So one of the students named Melvin works to bust anyone who gets out of line to the principal. So we get that set up as well pretty early on. So Harold and George go to their little treehouse, and then they wanted they wanted to end the movie pretty quickly, where they pranked Melvin, and then they were like, "Up, the movie's over. Bye, everyone." And then the actual movie begins in this sort of way where the principal stops them, and he had this setup with Melvin where he had this recorder, and then he recorded them doing this prank, so he actually had proof because every other time there was no proof. So the principal has this thing where he wants to split them apart, and they think that this will ruin their future forever, and that will somehow lead to the end of the world. Uh, so they imagine their future of sock puppets, robots, and a giant turtle. As the giant turtle was the thing that recorded them, except it was, of course, smaller. So this we learned that this cafeteria lady named Enid likes the principal, and the principal we see that actually while the Harold and George are looking for the recorder, that the principal actually had it on his leg the entire time. So he catches the boys, and while they were waiting, they pulled out this ring that the principal had stowed away way earlier. So uh, George uses the hypno ring as a test, and then after this whole like red zone thing happens, they test the ring, and then they make him do different things, and then they make him become Captain Underpants. So he goes away, fleeing, and then they chase him as he hits this mine, throws a lady into a tree, and then starts to tackle a blimp. So the both of them turn him back into the principal at some point, and then they figure out the mechanics of they snap their finger to get him to be Captain Underpants, and they use water on him to turn him back into the principal. So, anyways, the two of them snoop around his house, and then after they think that they have total control, they come in with this uh, music thing. You see that in the commercial where they're just swagging it up. So they switch him back into Captain Underpants right before their separation is about to be complete. Uh, they walk into Enid, and then they make their way past into the office. And we see the official villain of this movie, this white-haired guy. I'll just call Mr. P for now, but yeah, that changes quite shortly. Anyways, as Captain Underpants hires this suspicious white-haired man, this Mr. P, and at some point, the principal soaks himself because there was that super soaker that was left behind. And then the two of the kids are sent into the office, and then they get the they find out his last name, the P guy, and they find out his name is Poopy Pants. So this Poopy Pants guy has a flashback where he's a scientist, and then as soon as he's about to accept his award, he gets laughed at, and then that makes him unhinge into this sort of wanting to get everyone to stop laughing. That is his ultimate goal. So he gets the idea to further this plan by when he sees this comic book that the two kids left behind. Uh, Meanwhile, the kids are having fun at school. So Mr. P, I'll just go back to calling him that, wants to be this villain that that he notices in the comic book. And while the kids are having fun, they don't notice Captain Underpants leave, and he makes this whole carnival where there's plenty of water, so he keeps changing back, and they have to keep track of him as they're, as the water is making him change back and whatnot. And then the rain happens, and he's unable to change back into Captain Underpants because, excuse me, he's constantly being wet. So it was a bit odd that they didn't try to snap their fingers while they were inside getting separated, but whatever, for the plot convenience, I guess, of having that short moment of separation anxiety. So Mr. P makes this giant toilet because it's based off of that comic, and the two friends kind of meet up pretty quickly after seeing this giant toilet, and then he starts to wipe out the kids' laughter using Melvin, because apparently Melvin had no sense of laughter in him. So, anyways, Captain Underpants is brought back to face the toilet, and as soon as they are introduced back to him coming to fight this, they use what they call the fliporama, which, if you know the comic, that's when you take 2 pages and you flip them back and forth, and you see that back and forth sort of action. So that is how they represent the action of this movie. Is they use this sort of the fliporama trick. So after they get up onto the toilet somehow, Melvin tells Mr. P that they're up there, and Mr. P, they say that his problem is that he can't laugh at himself, and this is the moral that this movie tackles onto itself, and it actually is a pretty interesting moral, being able to laugh at yourself. I think that this movie, for as simple as it is, I think it does have an interesting moral, so I thought that little bit really stuck out for me. Uh, so anyways, he manages to get both of them to, he blasts them with this unfunny ray, I guess I'll call it. And at first it wasn't working, but he cranks it up all the way, and both of them are made unfunny. And then you see this little thing where their brains are trying to talk to each other, but they're getting more and more unfunny with it. And then Mr. P mentioned the planet Uranus, and that makes them that brings back all their laughter tenfold, and the machine starts to malfunction. And Captain Underpants at some point he was like engulfed inside the machine, and he was put inside this green goo, I guess I'll call it. And interestingly enough, this is a case where technically the super villain, or I guess I'll call him a super villain at this point, technically made this sort of average guy a superhero. So it's actually a reverse on the typical the superhero makes the villain cliche. So it actually swaps that out, makes the villain create the superhero, because before then he was just sort of a typical guy that just thought he was a superhero. So I thought that was also very interesting. So the end of this movie was actually pretty, for the most part, I found to be the most interesting part of the movie. Anyways, the Mr. P guy has the shrink ray. He's shrinking in stuff and making stuff bigger. Uh, and at some point, Captain Underpants has it, and he makes himself small, and he makes Mr. P big. Uh, and then he makes all this joke, all this stuff that sounds so true about the educational system being so small and underappreciated. Uh, Definitely something that caught my attention as well. Uh, Anyways, at some point, the villain is turned small, and then he's swatted away. And then after they are placed back in the office, when at some point uh, George breaks the ring, and then uh, they don't know why they were worried about it, about being split up. They knew that they would continue to be friends regardless of that. But they did send the principal and the cafeteria lady Enid these fake cards to each other, and then they go on this little date. Uh, and then we see this little sort of background thing where the big toilet, this goo, make all the other toilets sort of manifest into like these toilet monsters. And then while the date's going on and George and Harold are checking in on it, they see that the toilets are coming in. The principal snaps his own finger, and then he's able to turn back into Captain Underpants on his own accord, or the snap of the finger still turns him into Captain Underpants, I should say. So, the beginning of the movie is pretty simple. I would say, as well as the middle. I actually found the ending to be the most interesting parts of the movie, where you have the villain making the superhero, which again I said breaks the cliche. You have some pretty clever writing at the ending too, with the moral, and even with some of the stuff Mr. P says to be actually pretty true to life, even now. I would say especially now, actually. So, pretty interesting movie. I would say the ending is worth it. I would say I don't know how many people would know what Captain Underpants is unless you saw that in your school, and then you actually got the catalog and actually ordered and bought the book and read it for yourself. So I don't know how well this movie did as far as money's all concerned, but I actually still enjoyed it regardless of all that nonsense. But anyway, that is my review of this movie, and if you enjoyed it, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, bye!